There comes a time in every soul's journey when it pauses beneath the weight of the world's noise and aches for something quieter, something deeper. That moment, friends, is when the spirit begins to hear the sacred hum of the universe. In the West, more and more hearts are tuning into that frequency, and it is called Hinduism. Not a conquest, not a campaign, but a calling. There is a deep hunger rising in the hearts of many in the Western world. A hunger not for possessions, accolades, or fleeting success, but for inner peace, spiritual grounding, and meaning that lasts beyond the next achievement. For decades, the West has danced to the beat of industry, ambition, and acquisition. Yet amidst the tall buildings, glowing screens, and busy schedules, a quiet yearning has begun to echo. It is a yearning for silence, for stillness, for a truth that is not bound by the noise of the world. And it is within this stillness that many are beginning to hear the soft, steady heartbeat of Hinduism. Unlike many belief systems that clamor for attention or claim exclusivity, Hinduism waits patiently. It does not chase, it does not demand. It stands tall like an ancient tree, offering shade to the weary, shelter to the curious, and wisdom to those ready to listen. And as more people in the West begin to pause and reflect, they are discovering in Hinduism a spiritual path that welcomes questions, encourages exploration, and honors experience over dogma. The practices of silence and contemplation have become rare treasures in a world constantly vibrating with alerts and demands. Meditation, a central practice in Hinduism for thousands of years, is now being embraced in the West as a powerful tool for mental clarity, emotional healing, and spiritual connection. People are learning to sit with themselves, to breathe with intention, and to witness their own thoughts without judgment. In a society that often teaches us to run from discomfort, Hinduism invites us to sit with it, to learn from it, and to transform through it. What makes this particularly powerful is that Hinduism doesn't offer a one-size-fits-all answer. It doesn't insist on a single way to pray, a specific path to salvation, or a uniform vision of God. Instead, it provides a vast ocean of teachings, practices, deities, and philosophies, allowing each seeker to find what resonates with their soul. Whether one is drawn to the non-dual philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, the devotional love of Bhakti Yoga, the selfless service of Karma Yoga, or the disciplined path of Raja Yoga, Hinduism offers a space for every kind of seeker. The concept of the Atman, the inner self or soul, is particularly resonant in the West, where individuals often feel disconnected not only from others but from themselves. To be told that beneath all identities and roles lies an eternal, unchanging self that is divine, that is liberating. It shifts the focus from outward validation to inward realization. This sacred perspective helps people reconnect with themselves in a world that often pulls them apart. And then there is Om, the primordial sound, the vibration that is said to contain the essence of the universe. In that one syllable lies a universe of meaning, of presence, of peace. To chant it, to feel it resonate through the body and mind, is to remember something ancient and eternal within oneself. It is no wonder that the West, weary of endless noise, finds in Om a return to sacred sound. Hinduism doesn't just answer questions, it changes the questions we ask. It teaches not only how to live, but how to be. And in a world where being is often forgotten in the rush to do, this lesson is transformative. People are not turning to Hinduism because they are running from something, they are turning because they are seeking something deeper. And in the sacred quiet of its teachings, they are finding what they've always known, but perhaps never had the words to express. Hinduism invites the seeker not to follow blindly, but to walk with awareness, to question with reverence, and to discover through experience. This is one of the most compelling reasons why it is resonating so deeply with people in the West. Many have grown weary of rigid dogmas and inflexible doctrines that demand belief without understanding. They seek something that respects their intelligence, honors their curiosity, and embraces the sacredness of personal exploration. Hinduism answers that call with grace, offering a spiritual framework where doubt is not condemned, but embraced as part of the journey toward truth. At the heart of this freedom lies the concept of karma, which speaks to people in a profoundly empowering way. In a world where so many feel trapped by their past, by their upbringing, by societal limitations. The idea that every action plants a seed and every seed grows into a result becomes a light in the darkness. Karma does not judge, it simply reflects. It says you are the maker of your destiny, you are the sculptor of your tomorrow. This message has been especially liberating for individuals who feel powerless in their lives. It gives them not just hope, but agency. It replaces fatalism with purpose, victimhood with responsibility. Western minds, trained to seek scientific reasoning and personal autonomy, find in the doctrine of karma a spiritual principle that aligns with logic and ethics. It explains suffering without cruelty. It acknowledges injustice without excusing it. And most importantly, it places the power of change in the hands of the individual. This is not a religion that demands blind allegiance to a distant deity. It is a philosophy that teaches the divinity of one's own actions, thoughts, and intentions. This autonomy is further strengthened by Hinduism's insistence on Swadharma, one's own path, one's own duty. It recognizes that every soul is unique, every life is distinct, and every journey is sacred. There is no single path to truth, no one-size-fits-all salvation. This openness is deeply attractive to those who resist conformity. It tells them your truth matters, your way is valid, walk it fully. This level of inclusivity, which honors both personal freedom and collective wisdom, creates a spiritual environment that feels both grounding and liberating. In Hinduism, there is also the profound idea of jnana, knowledge born of reflection and direct realization. Scriptures like the Upanishads do not offer commandments. They offer conversations between teacher and student, seeker and truth. The student is not expected to accept without understanding. In fact, questioning is celebrated. In a Western world filled with skepticism, this tradition of inquiry feels refreshingly aligned with modern values. It bridges ancient wisdom with contemporary sensibility, allowing people to integrate their faith with their reason, their spirituality with their intellect. Perhaps most moving is that Hinduism never asks anyone to abandon their current beliefs to embrace its teachings. It offers itself without insistence. It says, take what nourishes you, leave what does not. This lack of force, this absence of coercion, is itself a form of spiritual invitation. It creates space, not pressure. And in that space, people find room to breathe, to grow, to rediscover themselves. That gentle generosity stands in contrast to much of what the West has previously known in organized religion, making Hinduism feel less like a conversion and more like a homecoming. When Western seekers approach Hinduism, they are not met with locked gates or guarded thresholds. They are welcomed with mantras, open hands, and a smile that says, you were always on this path, even if you didn't know it. In a world where many are weary of being told what to believe, Hinduism offers a refreshing alternative. It invites them to know for themselves. And in that invitation, it becomes not just a religion, but a revolution of inner awakening. In the ever-dividing world of identities, labels, and borders, there is a deep thirst for something that unifies beyond skin color, language, or culture. Hinduism, in its vast and ancient wisdom, meets this need by reminding the soul of its eternal essence. It teaches that at the core of every being lies the Atman, the divine self, untouched by race, gender, nationality, or status. When a person in the West, tired of being categorized and boxed in, hears the sacred whisper of Tat Tivam Asi, thou art that, something within them begins to melt. It is not just a phrase, it is a liberation. It is a call back to truth. It erases all separations, dissolves the illusions, and declares that beneath all appearances, all are one with the infinite. This teaching does not just speak to the mind, it sings to the soul. It reminds each person that their worth is not defined by the roles they play or the struggles they face, but by the unchanging spark of the divine that lives within them. In societies where people are often judged by how they look, what they earn, or where they come from, Hinduism offers a sacred lens that sees only the soul. This is not just comforting, it is revolution. It brings with it a sense of belonging, a sense that one is not separate or alone, but intrinsically connected to the fabric of existence itself. In the West, where questions of race, gender identity, and cultural division run deep, this message of universal unity feels like a balm. It does not ask people to abandon who they are, but to understand who they truly are beneath the surface. Hinduism embraces diversity not as a challenge but as a celebration. The divine is not one shape, one name, or one gender. It is many, and it is all. From the motherly grace of Durga to the meditative stillness of Shiva, from the playful love of Krishna to the fierce fire of Kali, every aspect of God finds a place. This inclusivity offers people a spiritual home where they don't have to change who they are to be accepted, they only have to awaken to who they have always been. More than anything, Hinduism does not force a person to shed their previous identity or background. It does not say, "You must forget your roots to be one of us." Instead, it welcomes every seeker just as they are. Whether one comes from a Christian family, a scientific worldview, or no spiritual background at all, the teachings of Hinduism wrap around them gently and whisper, "You too are part of this." This openness is deeply transformative in a world where so many feel excluded or outcast. It allows for spiritual growth without the pain of cultural disconnection. It is not about replacing a belief. It is about expanding one's understanding of life and self. In this way, Hinduism is not competing with other faiths or philosophies. It is complementing them, deepening them, allowing them to coexist with broader awareness. This is why in the West so many people practice Hindu principles while still honoring their original faith traditions. Yoga, meditation, chanting, and mindfulness have entered the lives of millions, not because they were demanded but because they resonated. And through these practices, people have begun to see themselves in a new light, not as isolated beings trying to survive, but as radiant souls rediscovering their oneness with all creation. In the gentle embrace of Hindu thought, people are no longer fragmented. They are not just bodies with names, histories, and roles. They are eternal, they are whole, and they are divine. This sacred realization, this experience of unity and diversity, is not an intellectual idea. It is a feeling, a knowing, a remembering. And it is this remembering that is drawing people in the West to Hinduism, not to become someone new, but to return to who they have always truly been. Across cities lit with neon signs and days packed with deadlines, there is a quiet movement growing, not of rebellion, but of remembrance. It is seen in yoga studios, in meditation apps, in the sacred pause between breaths, and in the growing silence that people seek amid the noise. This movement is not a fad. It is a return to stillness, to breath, to body, to soul. And at the heart of this return stands the timeless practice of yoga and meditation, both gifted to the world through the spiritual soil of Hinduism. In the West, these practices have become lifelines, not only to physical well-being but to spiritual awakening. They are not tools of escape but instruments of engagement, ways of healing the fractured mind and reconnecting with the divine within. For decades, the West taught its people to race forward, to chase goals, to compete, to conquer. But in that relentless pursuit, many lost themselves. Burnout became the norm, anxiety a constant companion, and fulfillment a distant dream. In that chaos, yoga and meditation arrived not as commandments, but as invitations. They asked nothing but presence. They offered nothing but awareness. And in those simple practices, stretching the body, watching the breath, repeating a mantra, people began to find not just calm, but clarity. They realized that peace was not somewhere outside waiting to be found. It was inside waiting to be remembered. Yoga in its true essence is not merely about physical flexibility or strength. It is about union of body and soul, breath and awareness, the finite and the infinite. The postures, the breathing techniques, the focus, all lead the practitioner inward. In that journey inward, many in the West have discovered more than relaxation. They have encountered themselves. They have glimpsed moments of stillness that feel like truth. And they have begun to understand that the mind is not their master. It is a tool to be trained, calmed, and aligned. Meditation paired with yoga, offers a sanctuary that no outside world can touch. In a 10-minute meditation, one may experience more realness than in an entire day of external activity. What makes these practices revolutionary is that they require no church, no priest, no middleman. One does not need to speak a certain language or wear a specific robe. One only needs to be willing. That accessibility is powerful. People who once felt estranged from organized religion have found in these Hindu practices a way back to the sacred. But without fear, guilt, or shame. It's not about sin and punishment. It's about awareness and liberation. The West, hungry for spiritual tools that don't judge, has embraced these teachings not because they were told to, but because they felt them. Even the very act of chanting, repeating sacred sounds like Om, Soham, or Shanti brings a resonance that vibrates not just in the throat but in the soul. Western science has only begun to scratch the surface of what ancient Hindu sages have always known, that sound carries power, breath carries healing, and stillness carries truth. In these vibrations, people find connection not only with the divine but with themselves. They don't need to believe in a god outside of them, they only need to feel the sacred within them. In a society often built on constant doing, these practices of being feel like salvation. They remind people that rest is sacred, that silence is golden, and that the soul speaks most clearly when the mind is quiet. Through Hinduism's profound spiritual technologies, people in the West are reclaiming their peace, their purpose, and their power. And they're doing it not by abandoning the world, but by learning to meet it with centeredness, compassion, and awareness. In a world where division often masquerades as identity, and separation is mistaken for strength, there is a quiet revolution blooming, one that embraces wholeness, fluidity, and the vastness of the human experience. Hinduism, with its kaleidoscope of gods and goddesses, philosophies and paths, offers a vision of the divine that is not rigid but radiant with diversity. It speaks of a God who wears many faces, sometimes a mother, sometimes a father, sometimes a child, a lover, a sage, a warrior. In this rich tapestry, people in the West are finding not only acceptance, but a profound sense of belonging. They are discovering a spirituality that doesn't ask them to conform, but encourages them to unfold. One of the most compelling aspects of Hinduism's growth in the West is this freedom of form, this divine inclusivity. In lands where religion has often been associated with binaries, good or evil, male or female, saved or condemned, Hinduism steps in like a river flowing around barriers, embracing every bend. It offers Krishna's playfulness to the childlike heart, Shiva's silence to the meditative soul, Lakshmi's abundance to the dreamer, Kali's fire to the fighter. In this tradition, the divine is not only worshipped, it is lived. And this living, breathing divinity resonates deeply with those who have felt alienated by systems that ask them to shrink, or choose only one version of truth. Gender identity and expression, long misunderstood or suppressed in many parts of the world, are given sacred space within Hinduism. The concept of Ardhanarishvara, a form that is half Shiva, half Shakti, beautifully embodies the union of masculine and feminine within a single being. This is not just symbolic, it is revolutionary. It says to every person who feels both, or neither, or something in between, you too are divine. For many in the LGBTQ+ community, this is not merely validation, it is spiritual empowerment. It says that you don't have to become someone else to be holy, you already are. This spiritual inclusivity extends beyond gender. It crosses cultures, languages, and traditions. Hinduism does not claim exclusive truth. It recognizes multiple truths. It does not insist that everyone walk the same path. It offers many roads, many practices, many forms of devotion. Whether through rituals, yoga, music, or silent meditation, each soul can approach the divine in the way that speaks most clearly to them. This resonates deeply with a Western audience that values autonomy, creativity, and the right to seek personal meaning. There is also something deeply artistic and experiential about Hinduism that captures the Western imagination. The vibrant festivals, the sacred dances, the intricate mythology, They aren't simply traditions to observe but invitations to participate. Holi celebrates joy and color. Diwali honors inner light over darkness. Navaratri reveres the divine feminine in all her forms. These are not just religious events, they are spiritual experiences that awaken emotion, storytelling, and community. In them many find not only beauty but a sense of celebration that is often missing in rigid spiritual structures. Even more, Hinduism's reverence for nature and the interconnectedness of all life is increasingly relevant in a world facing ecological crisis. The earth is not merely a resource in this worldview, it is a mother. Rivers are goddesses, mountains are sacred, animals are companions in the journey of the soul. This alignment with environmental consciousness speaks to the hearts of Western seekers who want their spirituality to reflect their values. What makes Hinduism so compelling, especially in the West, is not just its antiquity but its adaptability. It holds space for every seeker, every story, every soul. It does not erase differences. It honors them, weaves them into something sacred. And in doing so, it becomes not just a religion of the East but a spiritual language for the world. One that speaks not with judgment but with joy, not with division but with divine embrace.